Hi, my name is Tim Martin, and I'm Vice President of the Falmouth Genealogical Society, and we are beginning our 2022 monthly speaker series today. It's January 8th, and this morning we have Michael Palmer, the town of Falmouth clerk, speaking to us, and we've concocted a title like The Evolution of Virtual Records for Falmouth, Massachusetts. And let me just give you a brief bio here for Michael. Michael Palmer is a lifelong resident of the town of Falmouth and a member of the first graduating class from Falmouth High School in 1974. That's an interesting way to put it. Of course, the preceding school was called Lawrence High. So he's making a point here about the new high school in 1974. He has a BS degree from the University of Massachusetts. He was elected Falmouth Town Clerk in 2003 and is a certified municipal clerk from the Massachusetts Town Clerks Association and the International Institute of Municipal Clerks. He is also treasurer for the Cape and Islands Town Clerks Association and has been a member of the Board of Registrars of Voters since 1996. He is a member of the Board of Directors for FCTV and the Falmouth Walk Committee. He is married to Marie Palmer and has 3 grown children and 2 grown stepchildren. But most of all, I'm just wanting to affirm here how entirely willing he was to speak to us today and allow recording of this talk as a resource to others in the future, and how much I like that attitude. And I'll just say too, since Michael is a local, one of my secret agendas to see as if someday we can lure Michael to be interested in joining us in our genealogical fun. So be sure, consider joining us, Michael.
Okay.
No pressure at all. But anyway, go ahead and tell us what you can about the secrets of vital records in Falmouth.
Okay. First of all, thanks for having me today. I don't do this too often, so hopefully I'll have enough information that's recordable and usable after it's being recorded. I'm hoping I can give you some information that's valuable. So one of my many jobs as the town clerk and responsibilities of the town clerk, among others, I see familiar faces there, so they know we run elections here, and beach and dump stickers actually now we're doing here in the office. But one of the reasons why I'm here to speak to you today is about our vital records and how we maintain them in the Falmouth and in the state of Massachusetts. And however you want to proceed is fine with me. If you want to interrupt me as I'm going and ask questions, that'll be fine. If you want to ask questions at the end, that'll be fine also. I'm very flexible in how you want to proceed, but I'll let you control that part of it, I guess. So when I'm talking about vital records, what I'm referring to, and I'm sure you're all aware, so and if you're all into genealogy, you probably have more knowledge about some of this than I do, but I'll continue anyhow. But what I'm referring to as vital records are our birth, marriage, and death records in the town of Falmouth. And in Massachusetts, those are all permanent records. And in fact, they're all permanent records, and they need to be hard copy permanent records. So we always have, I bind them, just get bound in bound books, but we also are able to have them scanned in order to retrieve them and be able to issue certified copies. So we're pretty fortunate in the town of Falmouth, where a lot of other towns don't have that, don't have the documents scanned, at least back to 1900. But prior to 1900, it becomes a little bit more difficult. But so I do have records in my vault dating back to 1968 when Falmouth was first incorporated. One of the first town clerks, the reason they were town clerks is they were one of the few people in town that could actually read or write. So the job to maintaining and creating these records became the responsibility of the town town clerk's office. And a lot of the original records are all handwritten into ledgers, and so a lot of information is missing. It depends on who was recording it that day, or who the town clerk was, or what they felt was important, or what the person asking it to be recorded felt was important, was being written into these ledger books. Now I have a screenshot, but I have a couple things going on my desktop, and I'm not familiar with how to share my desktop, so I'll just let you believe me that they're handwritten in cursive in ledger books. Very, very, very difficult to read, and for that reason, when we're doing genealogy, it takes quite a bit of time. We're using indexes, and we actually, yeah.
Michael, I let's try to get your screen share. If you want to do that, there should be at the bottom of your screen I think a green icon that says share screen or something of the sort. You might have to wiggle your mouse.
I know how to do that. I guess I'm working off of two screens here, and you can see how I'm looking to the side now, because I'm looking at the secondary screen, which has everybody, and down here has shared.
And you can, and when you share your screen, you can select which screen you want to share.
Okay.
You want to try that or not? It's up to you.
I can. Let me see where I am here.
So you just select share screen, and then you're offered a choice of 1 or 2, and you click on one, or a number 1, screen 1 or screen 2.
Okay.
It'll highlight the 2 screens, allow you to select one. Does it?
Okay. Can you see that document now? Oh, let me hit share.
You have to say okay.
So can you see? Oh, no, that's the wrong one. Can you see that document now?
Yeah, this is maybe your notes or something.
No, this is the ledger book. Oh, no, see, that's
that you probably shared the wrong screen. So go ahead and stop. This is okay to practice this.
Okay.
You can, let me see, I'm going to stop your sharing. You could also have stopped it, but try sharing the other screen now.
Let's see where I am here.
If that, and if this doesn't work, that's fine, but let's try. You did share screens when we practiced a few days ago. There you go. And then, yeah, you just would, now we're seeing, and then you want to click on the upper left corner, there's an icon that upper left of the whole PowerPoint window, there's an icon that, there's the, take your mouse up to the far upper left corner where it says file.
Yeah.
Don't click on that. Nope.
Okay.
Don't click on that, and go to the right of that 3, and see that little thing, that other white icon, just 3 over, 1, 2, 3 from the file. Click on that.
Insert.
No, above that, there, click on that. That does your full size on the screen. There you go. And now you can just advance your slides. Actually, in the lower left, you can, if you wiggle your mouse in the window, you can see on the lower left, you get little icons in gray for forward and backward.
Yeah.
Or you can click on a space bar or down arrow to go to the next slide.
Okay. So I got it now. So this is just going to be for illustration purposes anyhow. That's why I was debating whether to share it or not. I only have 2 slides.
Okay, that's fine. And then we can tell me when you want to cut back to just you. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So what I was talking about is that they were the original records from the 1968s, and moving forward, as you can see on the screen right now, this is handwritten into a ledger book. So there's very hard to read, for one, and maybe a lot of you have already looked through these records and doing your research have come across this of the difficulty in doing the research because of how these records were handwritten. So because of this, what we use a lot of times is we use the book published by the Mayflower Society of Mayflower Descendants, Society of Mayflower Descendants, we use to help us, and that's kind of an index of what records we could be looking for. where I can be looking for these records. Now, again, I said we have these. I maintain these in a vault, and the vault is for that I have is for permanent records, and it's air conditioned and heated and humidity controlled. And back a few years ago, with Ann Sears' help and maybe some and CPC money, we did a lot of restoration of these documents. So we had them taken apart and rebound and restored, and those are stored in our vaults. But this is what we're doing when somebody asks for genealogy research to be done. This is the type of thing that we're looking for. We'll go back through and this is what we're looking at. So the difficulty in finding older records and it's a challenge, and it's part of the puzzle. And I'm sure that as genealogists, that's the puzzle that you guys enjoy unraveling and to trace your lineage and so forth. So then we're just going to move ahead to the current time. I'm going to switch slides here. So this is how we produce documents now, and you can see they're all these are actually electronically produced and able to be searchable. So back to 1900. We have all our death and marriage and birth certificates in the town of Falmouth are all scanned into a database, which is searchable. So it's very easy for us to go in and find a document and reproduce it relatively quickly in this format. We'll take a copy of this and copy it onto a certificate page, and I can certify that as a correct and true and correct record. So coming from the 1600s, where we had all those that were very hard to read, to these records and to these records today, it's obviously a lot easier to do the genealogy research with these records today. So I'm going to back out of this and go back to my original screen, I guess. Did I do that? Did I unshare? Oh, okay, so I'm not sharing anymore. Okay, so I'm not hearing anybody either, I guess. So I'm not sure what I did. Oh, maybe start video.
I'm sorry. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, now I can hear everybody. So
got it. Thanks.
Okay. So what the point I was trying to make there is that how we have come from the town clerks that handwriting all those documents and writing them very hard to do research. We try to use indexes and whatever information we have to find the correct book to go into, and then try to find the year, and then narrow it down to the date and month, or to the family, and then look under. Sometimes they were listed in those books by families, and then they have the Palmer family, and then they have Karen, Kathy, Karen, and Larry listed under Lawrence and Ted Palmer, and that's how we'd be finding the record of birth. And then we have kind of a form that we fill out as a copy of the record of birth that we can certify as a true and copy, which is what we are issuing for people that are doing the genealogy. So
Michael, Michael actually suggested, and I want to try just for this meeting, just to change things up a bit. Michael was the one who came up with the idea of allowing questions during the course of the talk. So, hey guys, let's try that. And hopefully we'll survive. And I'll just suggest that the way to do that is the way, for instance, I am now. I'm holding down my space bar and I hold it down and talk. So find them, like, for instance, right now, I'm just interested in asking Michael the question. So Michael, have you confirmed, or do you have deep Falmouth roots, or what do you know about your family history, just briefly?
Well, I go back several generations, and actually my father's family came from Nova Scotia, and my mother's family came actually from Ireland, but came through Chicago. So my roots in Falmouth go back, I probably think 3 generations, and I was part of the Davis family and the Palmer family. My grandmother's name was Davis. Obviously, my father's name was Palmer. and they originally settled in the Heights, in Falmouth Heights, and actually my sister actually owns the house that my father was born in and that my grandparents owned on Wachusett Avenue over on the Heights. So you go back a couple of generations, but we're not we didn't come over on the Mayflower by any means. So
Thank you. And yeah, anyone else, if Michael, it's okay to just pause once in a while, and we'll see if people have questions. We can have fun with that little different format. You're a local, and maybe we'll want to ask you, have some questions for you in particular that might be interesting for the rest of us.
Okay, by all means, just feel free to interrupt me, I guess.
Michael, Jerry Luby, just a follow-up question on the genealogy. I'm also the president over at Oak Grove Cemetery, and we do have a number of Civil War veterans that a whole team of folks are researching today, and Davis comes up quite a bit. Do you know if if your family goes back to the 1860s and part of the Civil War?
Yeah, I don't think they go back there quite that far. My great grandfather was Frederick Davis, and I think he is from Nova Scotia, not necessarily from Falmouth. So I'm not quite sure about that.
Okay.
Now my aunt Lemoyne, who actually lives here in Falmouth also, and I think may have been a member of your society. I didn't see her today. She's living over in Atria, so maybe she's not an active member. She has done all the genealogy for our family, and I probably should look at it. Probably should have looked at it before I came here so I could answer that type of question. But just off the top of my head, that's my feeling, is that we don't go back too far, but we go back a little ways.
All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Michael?
Yes.
Hi, this is Meredith Golden. Sorry, I'm not on video. I noticed when you put up the first description of the handwritten marriages, etc., that one said near the bottom, and I couldn't read it very well, but there was a servant, and it might have said Negro servant, that was married to someone. And I'm wondering if that was usual to have servants also included in the genealogy, in the records for Falmouth. This was in the 1700s.
Yeah, I'm surprised at a lot of things you will find in there, and the way we looked at life and the things that were acceptable back in the 1700s are a lot different than what is acceptable now. And to use the word servant and Negro, for that matter, we wouldn't think of doing that. We'd be offending someone along the way. But
I was
that
just
was very
amazed
common
that it was even recorded. I was impressed that Falmouth was recording marriages of other people that were non-white in the community.
Yeah, and until recent times, I'm not sure when this changed, maybe the 1940s, that color and race used to be on birth and marriage certificates. So we've taken that off, but that was common to have on records.
Yes, thank you very much. This is interesting.
Just looking very quickly, this is the Falmouth Vital Records. I just picked one page. Adequin, Celia, and Canada Reed of Marshby, in parentheses, blacks.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the terminology they use.
1765.
What was that, 1865? 1765. I'm surprised they even used the word black, because that kind of evolved it seemed to me in recent time, but obviously not. So yes, yeah, that was a common to have in the books. Now laws get passed that don't allow us to have those designations, and we probably shouldn't, but that was common to have back then. So
I'd like to make a point that the Falmouth Town records are available online at familysearch.org back to 1668. So the Mormon Church has photographed all the town records, and it's film 007009643 for those of you who want to just research this without bothering Michael in his office.
yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I that was done prior to my being here. And as we've done some research, I'm surprised people give me information, and I thought I was the only person that had the records, but they're giving me information from a book and page, and I'm saying, where did you get that information? If you're asking me to look for it for you, and I'm coming to find out that some of this information is online, and like as you said, the Mormons were able to photograph that. They might have done some restoration for us at one time, where they've taken these books and done the cleaning and done the bounding, and then taken the pictures of those. So I don't think they have. I know I did a quite a big project with CPC money in the early 2000s. That took these books and cleaned the pages and rebound them. I'm wondering if you have some of the earlier books that I wasn't involved with my project, might have been what they had done, and that's where you can find those online, I guess. So, but again, going back online and looking at, you can see the difficulty you have tracing. And well, I say difficulty, I guess, and this is for people that do genealogy. This is what you all enjoy, is putting these puzzles together. I know, at least talking to several people, and my aunt in particular, who did quite a bit of it. She really, she was a librarian, and she really dug digging into these things to put everything together. So I do it as my role as town clerk, but if I was doing it for myself, maybe it'd be a little bit more of an enjoyable task than to try to read these handwritten ledger books.
Well, I think having them rebound was a great thing. The Mormons filmed them in 1972.
Right, so that was a little bit before my time.
Right.
I was still at Lawrence High School because I went to Falmouth High School, but I was still at Lawrence High School then. Yes, so. Yeah, so that was, that's why I didn't realize that they did that. So that's why people have information that I wasn't aware that it was out there on the internet. So that's good to know. I may even look that up and see what's there myself.
It's free. You can go do it anytime.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
www.familysearch.org.
Okay.
And then go to the catalog and put in Falmouth.
All right, I will try to, I will do that. See what they have. So as I was saying, I kind of pick up where I come into this role, and here is back to the 1900s in Falmouth. Prior to that, they were in a lot of ledger books, but in the early 1900s, I think 1901, they started to use the forms that I had shown you for birth record or for all records, and they were done, they were typed in typewriters, and now we're moved to fillable forms, and they're all done online through a database. But Falmouth is one of the few towns, and I talked to other town clerks through our association, that has these documents scanned, so and able to retrieve them. And that's the thing I look for in preservation and restoration, is that we have these documents and we're able to retrieve them for people, and that's a key in any restoration project, is to make them retrievable so they're accessible to people. But so again, we have them back to the 1900s, which is very useful in the work we do. You know, not necessarily in genealogy, because now that's 120 years ago. No one's coming in asking for their own birth certificate from 1900s, because there aren't many 120-year-olds people alive. But nowadays, people who are looking for the birth certificate for one reason or another, we're able to retrieve that in a matter of seconds. So it's
Michael, can you comment, like these days, you know, in recent years or whatever, how many requests do you get for vital records? Where do those requests come from, and what kinds of vital records are they people looking for? I'm just kind of realizing that I wonder if we can, be I won't formalize it, but say whether or not we can have a relationship between you guys and us as far as retrieving vital records. I'll just leave it at that, but I'm just interested first, how often do you get requests, and where do they come from, and what kind of requests are they?
For genealogy requests, we get them very seldomly. I think we just worked on one. It was from somebody from out of state, so they sent us a big list of their family to see if we could locate their records, and sometimes they're not aware whether we have them or not, and sometimes they may have been born in Falmouth, but it wasn't recorded or we're not able to locate it. So we get actual genealogy searches, not too often, a couple times a year, maybe we get fairly large projects that we go through and do. But for present day documents, we get on a daily basis, we get requests for birth, death, and marriage certificates for various reasons. I mean, in the world we're living in, there's a the need to have verify who you are, and for security reasons, and in particular, if you go to the RMV to get a real ID, which you can use to travel and so forth, they're requiring your birth records and your marriage records. If your name changed from your birth record to your present day, they want to have they want to be able to track that. So even divorce records, they sometimes can be looking for, so they know you were born and your name was Palmer, and then you became Howard, and then you became Betsy or whatever. They're looking for that trail. So we get, on a daily basis, we're getting records, requests for vital records. So.
And there are rules for the release of current records, right?
Yeah, current records, and I think this is going to change, because we have so many records that are we call them impounded records, and an impounded record is defined as a record when the parents were, the mother and father were not married at the time of the birth. So that record would only be allowed to be given to the subjects on the record, which would be the child and the mother or the father, and that's a very common situation. And I think there is movement to remove that restriction, but all these in the legislation now, I should say, but all the other records are public records, and people can request them, and occasionally we get pushback saying, how can you be making that a public record? Well, that's the law, so we're following the law. So people are very concerned about stealing identities and so forth, but I'm not sure necessarily from our vital records that somebody could, I'm sure anybody could figure out a way to do it, use the records that we're issuing to create false identities, but I'm sure they could. So
Michael, earlier you said about the early 1900s, maybe 1901 is when you started using the typed records.
Yes.
At that time, did people ever complete an actual form and hand it to the clerk for the clerk to transcribe from? And if so, did you guys save any of those forms?
Well, that's interesting that you bring that up, because every vital record has a couple different components to it. They have a subject of the record, they have an informant of the record, they have a certifier and a facilitator. So for a birth certificate, an example, obviously the subject would be the child or the baby, and the informant would be the mother and the father. The certifier would be the doctor that would be certifying the birth, and the facilitator would be, for example, the hospital. So if this baby born at a hospital, you'd have a doctor performing the birth, and then you'd have the mother and father supplying the information and names of the baby. So you have all those components to a birth record. So if somebody, for example, was, and you're alluding to, was somebody supplied me with that information, if somebody was born at home, they would need to come in here and supply that information. And we may or may not have that information. If we created a birth certificate that needed to be typed up, we needed to have that information, and there needed to be an informant that gave us that information. And then we'd need to have, find out who was there present at the time of birth, and they would be considered the certifier of that record to verify that it is correct. I had recently a gentleman came in, he was in his 80s, and he came in, he was trying to get a real ID, and his license had expired, and he was asking for a birth certificate. He said, I was born in the town of Falmouth. Well, we couldn't find it, and come to find out he was born at home, and he was able to go to the church and get his baptismal records. But you don't know whether, and we don't want to create false identity, so we don't know if he was born somewhere else, and that's just what the gentleman was saying. But I believed him. He came in, I think I recognized him from being around town, and it finally came down to, because you need evidence, you need, and at least the older records, you get records of, somebody in their 80s, their parents are probably not alive anymore, or the doctor that delivered them maybe not around, or the midwife or whoever was doing it at home may not be around. So it's hard to validify those records. So it's hard to recreate them without people that have firsthand knowledge of the record, because we don't want to create documents that are falsifying the information. So we really look for evidence, and we look for people that have firsthand information about the record. And if it's a home birth and it was never recorded, what was this gentleman going to do? Well, somehow he made it through life without having to have a birth certificate. So he had a whole bunch of other things. He went to school, he has school records. So we could utilize some of that type of thing. But I guess the outcome of all this with this one gentleman, he said, I haven't been stopped by the police in 60 years, so I'm not going through the hassle of getting all that. If they stop me, I'll just say I don't have a driver's license. So that was the outcome of it. But hopefully that doesn't happen too often. But that is an incident where either people don't realize they had to record a birth of a child that was at home. And now we have a forms that they have to go through, and there has to be a midwife or a somebody that in attendance at the home birth, and this documentation that needs to be filled out, and then we create the home births here in the clerk's office. Any babies born in a hospital, obviously the hospital would be creating that birth certificate, and they're doing it electronically now, where up until about 15 years ago they would type it onto the 3-part carbon copy, and they would keep a copy. They would send us a copy, and then a copy would be sent to the Vital Records and Statistics of Massachusetts in Dorchester for those records. So I'm not sure if that's a long-winded answer I'm not sure if I answered somebody who asked me.
Yes, thank you. So basically, a lot of the people would come in verbally, because it wasn't so-called form in like 1905. So they would verbally tell the clerk, and the clerk would spell things phonetically
Yes.
for the illiterate people and the immigrants.
Yeah, that causes issues. Again, we'll take that same gentleman. He could come in and said, I've been going by the name Robert for all my life, and in my birth certificate says Roberto, and it's not, it's Robert. Well, your parents wanted you to be Roberto, and you've just been calling yourself Robert. How do you change that? And I guess we don't make changes here at the clerk's office. We make corrections. So you would have to give us some kind of evidence to why that was not the correct name. And it would have to be evidence close to or around the time of birth, or from firsthand knowledge. So you may be able to get baptismal records that spelt that Robert rather than Roberto, and then we would be able to make that change.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now, hopefully we've not interrupted your train of thought.
Oh yeah, I'm totally all over the place now. I don't know where I had an outline, but I'm totally off. But that's fine. I don't mind doing that. So as I was saying, just with this birth record, every record, the marriage and death, has those 4 components to it. And really, when we make any amendments, the amendments have to be in the town where the record was created. For example, if now we don't have Falmouth isn't a birthing hospital, so everyone's either getting, all babies are either born at Cape Cod Hospital in Hyannis, or a lot of them go to Plymouth. I don't even think I was born in Wareham, but I don't even think Wareham's a birthing hospital anymore. So if changes like were need to be made to these records, they would have to go to Barnstable or to Plymouth, say, to make these changes, because it always reverts back to the place of occurrence, not the place of residence. We may have a copy here as a resident copy of someone being born in Barnstable, but the place of occurrence, in order to so I'm not making changes, and the place of occurrence doesn't know that I'm making the changes. It always reverts back to the place of occurrence, and then they will send me an updated version of anything they have made corrections to, for whatever reason. So and that goes for all the records. So a marriage certificate, for example, you have well, we're not even calling them brides and grooms anymore. We're calling them party A and party B. So that's the subject of the record, and they're also the informant. They're coming in and filling out marriage intentions and give us all the information on the record. And then you'll have a certifier, which would be the person performing the ceremony, a priest, solemnizer, or officiant, or whatever. And then here at the town clerk's office, I guess the town clerk would be considered the facilitator, because we would pull this record all together and make sure it's all correct, and then enter it to be recorded. And marriage records are recorded in the town that the intentions were taken out. So if you took out intentions here in Falmouth, but you went over and got married in Bourne, you wouldn't go to Bourne to get the record. You'd have to come back here to Falmouth to get that record, because that's where you initiated the document. And any changes, or I shouldn't say changes, because I've already said we don't make changes, we make corrections. Changes would have to be done by a court order. We would only make corrections if something was factually incorrect at the time the record was produced. We would make corrections to those. So then the last one would be obviously be the death record, or the person passing away would be the subject of the record. The informant would be the next of kin, would provide all that information to the funeral director, who would be the facilitator, and then the certifier would be, there's always a doctor that would certify the time and date of death. So as I was saying, all records have 4 different components to it, and getting back to those are present day records, and that's the difference between the things in the ledger books, which were missing a lot of information, and some had some of the information, some didn't have some of the information, because I think as it evolved and more people started looking into having their records, laws were passed and whatever to make them more consistent with what the information was being collected. Makes sense?
I have a question, Michael.
Sure.
Regarding marriage intentions. Sometimes marriage intentions have more information that's valuable to genealogists than the marriage certificate itself. If someone asks for the application for a marriage license, do you make that available too?
We can. That is a permanent record. I don't get that as often as we'll get the marriage certificate. But we take all the information from the intention and we're typing it over onto the marriage certificate. So there's not a lot of additional information, but there may be some information that would be valuable to you. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, we like to see original information supplied by the subjects. And sometimes, I know it doesn't happen in your office, but sometimes from transcribing from A to B, mistakes are made and things like that. Anyway, a lot of times there's addresses too on the intentions, and sometimes there's parents on the intentions.
Yeah, that's
and
all
places of birth. So
yeah, that all gets copied over onto the license. Now, the thing to remember about intentions, and when I have them sign those intentions, they're signing the bottom that they've supplied that this information actually under the penalties of perjury, because we're not verifying that it's all factual. They're verifying that it is factual. And if something wasn't factual, then their spouse could hold them accountable for that fact that they lied on their marriage intentions. We're just producing the information that they gave us. Now we type that, and we require when they come to pick up that license prior to the officiant filling out their section of it, you know, where it took place and the date and so forth, and who performed the ceremony. We're requiring the somebody to proofread that to make and try to catch as many of the mistakes prior to that third party of the officiant adding their information onto that record. So we're really trying to catch those mistakes, but they absolutely do happen. And one thing on marriage records that really people struggle with is the name they're going to be using after they're married. There is a place on the marriage certificate and on the intention to put what name you would like to use. Now, interesting side note on this, you can choose any name you want to. In fact, the husband can not use his last name, or they can make up a whole new name, and that's the surname to be used after marriage. And at this time, it's almost like going to court and doing a name change. They could actually change their name to be used after marriage and use their marriage certificate as proof that they did that. So we try to get all that information correct right from the beginning, but there are choices that the people, the informant of this, the party A and party B are choosing to do on that intention.
Oh,
Somebody have a question?
yes, this is Eleanor Baldick.
Hi.
And anyway, I knew your mother very, very well, and she
Sure.
was just a delightful woman. And we had the luncheon group every month. We
Oh,
had a
yeah.
luncheon group with a whole bunch of us, and she used to, you know, naturally talk about her marvelous family all the time.
Oh, yeah.
But that,
we-
my question also was that sometimes naturally we all know that when you copying of the original and then copying it over, there's always a mistake. Not always, but many, many times. So there's nothing I like better than to see the actual original, if I can see it.
Right. So somebody was asking before 1900, they're not written on forms.
Right.
As of 1900, when they go to the form, we have that scan, and we're taking a copy of the actual scanned document and pasting that onto our certificate paper and certifying it there. So
Oh,
that
that's
should be
good.
actual what the document said and what the informants signed off on those documents.
That's what I want to see. I want
Yeah,
to see the original.
Yeah. So.
Okay, thank you. But I just wanted to tell you that I remember the family now. I've been thinking about it and thinking about it. Now I remember who I knew and who I didn't know.
You know, it's funny that you bring that up. One of the things I really enjoy about being town clerk, and I really get excited about, is when I'm going through old records here at town hall and I find something of my own family. For an example, a couple of years ago, I was going through a book of registered voters, and actually back at this time in the 40s and early 50s, they actually kept it women and men in two separate books. So I was going through the registered woman's registered voter list and just flipping through it. I happened to find my mother's name in her own handwriting, registering to vote at the town hall, which was at the time over in Peg Noonan Park. And I just get excited when I see something like that. And then the very next name underneath her was my aunt, Marilyn Palmer was her name under it. So the two of them were downtown, walking around downtown, doing something together. And I always kind of like to speculate. I wonder what they were doing downtown that day. And they probably went over to the drugstore and had an ice cream cone or something. And my uncles ran the bus station that is now I don't know, it's the little white building behind Ben and Bob. So they probably went to the bus station, then went and had an ice cream at Tickness's, and then went across the street to Town Hall. So those are the type of things that I bring a smile to my face when I see them in the record books. So, and I've always joyed about being a town clerk is those type of things.
That's just delightful, finding all of that. Thank you.
Okay.
Michael, I have a question. This is Mary.
Hi.
It's a question and a little bit of just something to share, which is I have gotten wonderful information out of the annual reports about my family that went back a couple generations here. And if you could just let everybody know some of what's available that way, through the library, and then what you might have that goes back even further, because you get a lot of spice about whether they helped to clean the snow off the roads back in the early 1800s. And, that there's just like anecdotal things that can be great for stories.
Yeah, the annual reports used to have a little bit of different information now than it did back then. They used to have birth, marriage, and death are actually listed in there, and that's not a requirement by law anymore, I guess. So it took up a lot of pages, so they took that out. But there are the annual reports from the town are actually are searchable through the library, and I think the enterprises are actually on the same searchable database as town reports, and you can go back and I always, again, on the same light, I get a kick out of, I can spend an afternoon searching the Falmouth enterprises by just putting in keywords like my family's names, and I'll put my sister's name in, and it'll come up they were at a birthday party at Eleanor Baldick's house or something like that, and it's I always get a kick out of seeing that. But we have those here in obviously recent times. We started using computers, I don't know, back in when I got here, obviously we were using computers, but in the 70s and 80s, computers hadn't developed to everyone having a desktop computer. But basically everything nowadays is created electronically, and I try to preserve that in a searchable manner as much as possible. So all the town reports are all electronically stored, and they're on our website, as a matter of fact, and I think they're searchable on our website. But the library also has them going back to, I'm not sure when the earliest is, late 1800s is the first town report that I think I have, and I know the library did a project to scan them and enter that in their database that's searchable. So they're always fun to spend some time looking through, like you said.
I have another question for you. Are there things that you have that are town files or reports from years ago? For example, I know Jerry's involved with the Oak Grove Cemetery. Would there be anything on a cemetery committee, the notes that they made during meetings, the minutes, that kind of thing that you might have from the past?
Somebody just recently asked me that about a cemetery committee, and to find out, and I think it was quite a few years ago was the last references I could find to it. There was actually a custodian of cemeteries was appointed by the Board of Selectmen at one point, and there was a cemetery committee. And it was quite a few years that stopped showing up in the town reports. I don't know if the cemeteries got too full, so there wasn't any room for. I don't know. I don't fully understand the cemeteries and who's responsible for them. A lot of times, when I have a question about a cemetery, I call Grafton Briggs, because he digs all the graves and he has a lot of information about the plots and where they are. I'll give him a call, and he has a lot of information that I can kind of piece together questions that people give me. But we do have some cemetery records, but again, they stopped, and it seems to me in around the 1960s they stopped, and I'm not sure what the change was there. I should probably investigate that so I have a better handle on that. But I know there's some people doing a little bit of work on it in town, and and I forget her name. I'm sure you all know her, has done some research into headstones and who's buried in what cemeteries. But
So do you have anything before 1960?
I'm not sure of the exact dates, but I do have books here that
You-
register. I have to think of that. I'm trying to look in my vault to see what the name of it is. People used to pay for cemetery plots, I guess. So I forget the name of the record, but it wasn't a clerk's record. It was actually a treasurer's record, but I have them in my vault of perpetual care of cemeteries is what it's called. So I have those records, but again, I'm not sure the exact date, but it stopped at some point. So there may be information that people can utilize in there.
And we would
again-
just come in to you to ask for those kinds of things if we have questions?
Yeah, certainly. They're not scanned now. The restoration I did in around 2005 or 6, I scanned all those, and those are available. They're not available online right now, but we do have electronic copies of some of them, but not the cemetery books. That was before my project.
So how would we go about for some of these kinds of records that are more, not generally available to the public? How would we go about trying to get you to show us those, or can we be, how do we do that?
Yeah,
If you
they're
don't
all
mind.
public records. So if you want to stop in the clerk's office and I happen to have the books, they're the treasurer's books, but they happen to be in my vault. I could just show you the record. I can set you up with a desk and a chair here, and you can leaf through them to see if there's any information that would be useful to you.
Thank you for that, Michael.
Yeah, I don't know if the churches were involved and the town was involved, and who has ownership of the cemeteries. I don't know how many town-owned cemeteries there are, and I know there's a few. I think the DPW probably has more information about the town-owned cemeteries because they have to maintain them, I guess. But I don't have a lot of information about the cemeteries, unfortunately.
Well, we were trying to get information about Civil War veterans and where they were buried and that kind of information. And it sounds to me like it might be useful for us to come to you.
Yeah, maybe just to see what is in those books. I know they look like payment coupons that are in the book to me, but there may be more information you can get from those receipts.
Yeah, there's a whole series of projects taking place. Of course, the old cemetery down on Mill Road is sparking up in terms of being able to repair some of the old gravestones. And there's an awful lot of talk about a committee being formed to organize an effort to restore some of that. And I think that I think you'll probably end up having more and more folks, give you a call on these days for research purposes with that information, because it seems to be an area that is a bit of a stone wall, when you try to unravel the events, prior to, but that's good to know. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, I think town meeting just appropriated some money to repair some headstones in a cemetery just this last town meeting.
Yes.
Yeah, real quickly, regarding the Falmouth Enterprise digitization that you referenced, Michael, that available through the Falmouth Public Library website. That enterprise digitization ends 1962. And a few people might not be aware that we're told that it's very likely that the newer material will soon be added. So we'll be able to search more recent copies of the Falmouth Enterprise. It's fairly soon. I guess the project was slowed by COVID or something, but that'll be a really good resource when it appears.
Yeah, all the enterprises are in the library on microfilm. but that's hard because you have to pull out the microphone, put it in the machine, and read through it. When they get on the website, they're actually searchable. So, and I'm not sure what the Falmouth Enterprise has for archivable information also, and whether they would be able, or they would want to share with the town and the library. I'm not. I know they have archivable stuff because they come up with stuff for articles, and they can tell they have background information available.
Yeah, if you are a subscriber to any of the Falmouth Enterprises, they have a archive, I don't remember precisely, but it's, several years back of digitized copies. It's not that far back, but so yes, they do have an online searchable archive for, if you just go to their website as a subscriber, you can see, at what point they begin their digitization. It's a handful of years.
Yeah.
I can also add, though, just because I did some research here years ago, I just walked into the Enterprise one time and a woman went back and brought out a file on the last name, my last name, and it was everything that had been in the newspaper about it. They used to have a woman that did that job. I don't think they do it anymore, and I'm not so sure they allow people to do what this person did when I asked, but she was willing to make copies of everything that was in that file. And I'm sure they were doing it because of writing articles for obituaries or whatever. Anyway,
Newspapers.
I know that exists over there. And I thought that might be what Michael was talking about.
Yeah, I think I was, because I've seen those files where if I've been sent some files, my brother passed away, and I think so the Enterprise sent me some information that they had a file on him, which was interesting to see. But I'm interested to see if that project at the library moves forward and they're taking the microfilm and putting it in a search, because sometimes people will come and request something from me, a town meeting vote or something like that. And even though I have a lot of electronically, I try to search for it and I can get it by date, or I can go to the annual reports. Sometimes I just go to the Enterprise. Even now I go back to before whatever they have on there, 1960, did you say, I think, and I can search and find out when the cemetery committee was formed, or when they have a comment in the paper, and then give me a general reference of where I can start looking in my records for something that happened. So it's a valuable tool to have that stuff. So
another good source for newspaper records is the Genealogical Bank, and I just joined that, and I was able to look up my grandfather's name, and they had, you see the actual papers. This was for Boston, South Shore, etc. And they show you the actual articles. And my grandfather was only named like 5 times, but my father was in the paper 116 times. And it gives the whole article. It's really fascinating to look through. So that's Genealogy Bank. And I'm sure there are other newspaper banks. I don't know if the Enterprise and Cape Cod Times are included or not. I haven't looked.
Going back to Mary's comments in newspaper worlds, that was called the morgue, where they kept all of those articles. And Michael, I've got another question for you. Perhaps I haven't looked at it, but on your website, do you list all of those more obscure records that are in your office, like the treasurer records or the cemetery proprietors records? So we would know what was hiding there.
Yeah, that's a good idea to do. And when I had this done, I had it done. I have them stored, and I kind of moved on to other things. And maybe that's something this winter I can look at. A lot of them are huge files when they're scanned, so they take up a lot of space on the website, and that makes it difficult to maneuver. But I know we have a new website now from when I originally did this, so maybe this is something I can even get onto the website, so people can look at all these ones that I had done. I must have had at least 20 or 25 books restored, and actually just post them onto the website. I'll have to ask our IT people whether that file size is small enough or large enough capacity on our servers here at Town Hall to add that or not. But that would, I think, yeah, that's something I should look into. It's not right now. I mean, I have a list on my desktop, but I don't have that anywhere on the website. But that's a good suggestion.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, just the title, not, not all the information, just. the
Right,
title.
right. That would be easy to do, and I could work on that. But then all the information would be something that, why not?
I'm going to take just a moment here to, I'm going to share my screen. And right here. Okay, you see this Falmouth Genealogical Society at the top of the screen now. Do you all see that? Do you see that? Does someone comment? Okay, good.
Yes.
So this is our homepage of our website, and this is kind of for Michael to know. So a quick way of remembering our website and others, others to know, is FALGen, FAL as in Falmouth, GEN as in genealogy. Falgen.org is a quick for your memory, and it'll redirect to here. And I just wanted you guys to be aware that we have, under resources, we have links. And the top set is links to local genealogical and historical resources. And so here's where you can see, for instance, here's the date range for the Falmouth Enterprise, date range for the Falmouth annual reports, the other newspapers, the GIS, for property searches for the various towns on the Cape. There's a lot here. Chatham Monitor, Cape Cod Chronicle, different. And, I'm trying to keep up with resources that are online, and you all may find a lot of this useful. I just wanted you to be aware of it. So that's at falgen.org, resources, links, and also just for you to know, Michael, data search, this is unique for us, our obituary index. Ralph Wadley has for many, so in summary, if you want to get obituary, boy, excuse me, you can go to the Falmouth Enterprise online swath, 1896 to 62. But Ralph and others have been doing an index since then. And here it is. If you go to the G's, you can look up, Daniel Gadsby, 1986, the month, 10th month, the first day, page 2. And then you can make a request for us to, right here, you see, click here to request a Falmouth Enterprise obituary by email. And we get an email, and we'll pull that, we'll go to the microfilm and pull that obituary for you. So those are two of many resources that we supply. I'll quit. Let me stop sharing my screen here. So Michael, any other things that you have up your sleeve to talk about?
I think I went through all my notes and ad-libbed a little bit in between there, but certainly could answer any more questions. But I think that all I had to cover. I'm not. There may be other things that anybody would be interested in. I'd be happy to talk about.
Yes, I do. It's off topic, but the census form that you actually fill out, is there any way of getting that information? I mean, we can get the information for the results, but what was the form that they were given to fill out? Thank you.
So I'm not sure if you're talking about the US Census, which is done every 10 years, or the Falmouth Annual Census, which is done once a year. And we're sending out the records. It's all completed on the form, and you should be getting it the next day or two. And you're going to verify all the information on there is true. And it's just really for our purposes is to update your voting records.
No, that's not what I'm specifically looking for, the 2000 census form that was filled out by the town of Falmouth.
Well, it wasn't the town of Falmouth that did that. That would have been the US Census did that. So
Okay,
you'd have
but
to go
Falmouth
online and
doesn't-
look, you'd have to go online and look up US Census.
Okay, so Falmouth wouldn't have a copy of that at all?
I would have to go online and look it up.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think, Karen, the fact that it's the year 2000, I think that's still privileged, locked up information. That's just too recent. You're not going to get the detailed information.
No, I'm looking for the blank form.
Right, I'm saying that blank form, oh, the blank.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, I can refer. Yeah, I have on our website, on the one of the links on that faljan.org,
Okay. go
link
ahead.
to the various blank forms for since 1790.
Thank you.
You know, all the forms that were used, and also enumerator instructions. So that when it so for instance, if the form asks for race, the enumerator instructions will tell you what the enumerator was supposed to consider regarding race.
You
And
would
so,
review
and
them
all
out.
that, there are links to all those forms on our, and you can Google for those too, but that's also some of the links that we've provided on
Okay,
on that
great.
page.
Thank you, Tim.
I'm going to stop the recording here. How about that?